Hey, it's Cade. You're about to watch one of my favorite episodes. This is our bonus episode where we talk about our favorite and least favorite films of season 2 of Double Feature Movie Club. I love talking about and ranking what our top and bottoms are. Diane and I, we both say it's our favorite episodes of the season. So this is looking back at last season of Double Feature Movie Club, some of our favorites and least favorites. If you're new to this channel and new to what we do here on this podcast, then this is a good starting off point of looking back at our previous season and saying what we liked and what we didn't like from the movies that we watched. And there's some fun disagreements. Diane and I have different movie tastes, and so some of my favorites are some of her least favorites, and some of her least favorites are some of my favorites. So some good disagreement and some good crossover too. So this is a good little sampler of the previous season. However, we are moving into a new season of Double Feature Movie Club, which I'm happy to announce is literally starting this week. We are live streaming on our YouTube channel at this Saturday. It's a special time for this premiere episode, Saturday, February 18th. Then we return weekly after that back to our original time on Sundays at 6 p.m. Central. Check us out. We'll be here weekly for season 3 of Double Feature Movie Club. I'm excited. And then it's available, as always, Monday mornings, wherever you get your podcasts, if you prefer to listen to it that way. And if later, if you want to listen to our live streams, they're available on the live tab now on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/ktomas. This season, we have a lot of really great guests coming around and a lot of really great movies. Hopefully, as you know, we haven't ever seen them before, so we'll have some good ones, we'll have some bad ones. As always, this first week we are talking about The Wizard of Lies, which is the Bernie Madoff HBO movie starring Robert De Niro and Michelle Pfeiffer. And then we're talking about Big Eyes, which was the Tim Burton directed movie. It has Amy Adams and Christoph Waltz, and they're both about fraud, one in the financial industry and one in the art industry. And it should be fun. They're biopics, and as always, this new season will have really great pairings, either from genres or from directors or actors. Really great fun things coming this way for season 3 of Double Feature Movie Club. But we're looking back on season 2 with this episode. Check it out. I hope you enjoy. CL, hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Double Feature Movie Club. This is what we call a bonus episode, in which we are talking our favorite and least favorite movies of the last season. This was the second season of Double Feature Movie Club. We did 15 episodes, 30 movies. We're talking about our favorite and least favorite, and of course, I'm joined by the person who watched all these movies with me, minus 2, kind of.
Minus
one, kind of, yes. Because she was fighting.
Because I couldn't make it all the way through one of them.
And then because you'll have to watch that episode to know why that was that was a fun episode. I mean, you weren't on it, but meaning that because you were dealing with some things.
So it was fun.
It was
fun because I was not on it. It was you and Harrison. I mean, how much fun can that be?
You've only missed 2 episodes, one for each season. I think that's a fair thing.
Especially for somebody who was just supposed to be a part-time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So I think that's a fair thing.
Kill off all the competition, though.
Yes. Yeah. That's why they've never returned. That's right.
That's right. They're still wondering what happened to their body.
It's a perfect crime. I don't know why it's perfect, but it's somehow perfect because you got to be on this podcast with me.
Some of these movies that we watched over the second half of this deal, which is, how many movies was it that we just watched? 30?
Yeah, we watched 30 movies.
Some of them were the perfect crime.
Yeah. I must say, I think you said that in our last episode we did. This is your favorite episode, this bonus best and worst. I think it's mine too. I think it's fun, it's different. It's I think comprehensive. We get to look back on the season and everything, and we get to, of course, also, I think this is really, if you didn't listen to us the first time about what we said, And like, because we'll say that's really good about a lot of movies, or we say I wasn't a huge fan of that about a lot of movies, but you really can't tell in comparison until this list comes out of really what our feelings were. And when we say it was a really good movie, do we mean it's like one of the best movies we've seen, or do we just mean it's it's pretty good? Whatever. This is your way of finding out our best and worst recommendations, right?
Well said, Cade.
Okay. Great.
Well said.
Well, we won't go into anything here. I think we'll just jump in, right, Diane?
Right. Well, like we always do.
Like we always do.
The whole thing. Can I say something about this season of movies?
Yes, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this isn't true for all of them, but it was true, kind of their overarching truth, at least from my perspective in watching these movies as an old woman. I'm going to put myself as an old woman and try. There were the stories about women in this series of movies covered all the bases. You had everything from the typical male director loves to get the teenage girl giving blowjobs kind of trope that you see to a Long Island wealthy woman who has been born and bred to be a wealthy Long Island man's wife, have to go from being that, which the biggest thing she ever managed was her home and a charity event, to running the world's largest newspaper, or the nation's most influential newspaper.
Yes. And
having to make that transition. And so huge range of roles for women, huge range of characters for women in this. Some good, some bad, but it was... I really loved that about these series of movies. It dealt for women from everything from grief, and the loss, the massive loss from a woman's perspective, to experience, to aliens. From a woman's perspective. I mean, I love that about these movies, and you rarely. A lot of people, you read a lot about how there aren't opportunities for women in Hollywood. There's not, opportunities for good roles after a certain age. There's, all these different tropes that you hear about that's happening. And I love the fact that we were able to put together a list of movies that prove that there are good movies out there. There's good roles for women out there, and there are good stories about women.
Yeah, and we watched a lot of movies that were directed or written by women too. Yeah,
and that might be why. There might be why that some of them are like that, but I did love that part about it. We got to watch some of my favorite actresses too. Like Annette Bening.
Yes,
be a lesbian mom. In a committed relationship, to being a senator. Oh
yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right.
I love that. I love that we got to see some of that, and even with some of the other, even the Neon Demon thing with Elle Fanning, where it seems like every young entrepreneur that's come through has to do some kind of movie that is a horror movie that sexualizes her, yada yada yada. But she was able to take that and say, "Okay, I realize I have to do this movie, but I'm going to make this character mine."
Yes, and there was a lot of stuff
and
behind
I'm going
that.
to twist her on that. So yeah, I was really impressed with that. So thank you, Cade. I rarely get someone catering to my, what's out there for women, because I've kind of been on this bandwagon lately. Don't make it second-class citizens.
Yeah, and
51%.
And you're right. I mean, I think that for the most part, that was a common theme through a lot of our stuff is gender in general, and how that sort of plays in society and everything. Yeah. I really like these movies a lot too. I mean, there was a lot of really good ones from season 1 too. And again, this week time plug. If you didn't watch that or listen to that version of best and worst of Double Feature Movie Club this far from season 1. Really great starting off point if you didn't watch any of our first season. That's a good way of just sort of getting an overview of us and everything. And I think hopefully this one will be too. We'll jump right in. Hate to all that good stuff, but there were some stinkers in this group.
Oh, there were some stinkers. Man.
All that good stuff. We have to. You have to wade through the awful stuff, or even we didn't like. Like, I think some of these are like, I could see how someone like it, but I didn't care for it. And then even like where they didn't, it didn't work quite right, but you could see what they were going for. And I don't know, there's just different things. And also, let's be clear here, we're comparing them to some really, really great movies. Like, I mean, there's tons of, I always put that caveat here, tons of worse movies than even our worst ones, because we're picking the worst of what's been on people's best of list. So, just with that caveat.
Yeah.
Just with that caveat.
And these are not, these are our opinions, right?
Yes.
So,
just our opinions, man.
Differ. Just our opinions. You're a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. I'm, a retired person who just likes to watch movies and wants to be entertained. And I even love Hallmark movies. Come on, I admit it.
I know we're approaching a whole thing here that's like, I think we're going to have some differences here, but we're going to be fun.
Oh, we are going to have some differences. I can tell you that right now. Mm-hmm. But go ahead and like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, yes. And rate us 5 stars and everything. Yeah, so, because we have different perspectives, and it'll be interesting to see where we overlap. Okay. I'm gonna start out with we're doing, just so you're clear, our bottom 3, which we'll start with our going to our third to our least favorite, how it works, and then we'll do 5 to 1. So we'll go through this one time. I'll start it off with my first of my bottom 3. You ready to jump in here, Diane?
Ready.
Okay. My first bottom 3 film, third least favorite. That makes sense. We did this before, Diane, right? third least favorite. Third least favorite. Not our top one, our third least favorite, which to me might be controversial being a filmmaker fan. I have gotten into so many things with people that I like this direct. I don't know. It's going to get me into trouble. I don't like it. I didn't like it. And the guest that we had on that week loved this film. And if I think this might be our lost episode. I don't know. I don't remember, because we did lose an episode. That's a whole thing we'll discuss later, I guess. And that is Inherent Vice. It is my third least favorite.
Yeah.
It was meandering. I don't know. I don't get the point. Like, to me, with Inherent Vice, the only positive I could come up with was Martin Short's Dennis character. I love that character where he was like I forgot
about him, but yeah.
Yeah, and the set design in general, I really did like. I didn't like the movie. It was meandering. It was way too long. I think it might be our longest movie we watched well, it might one of the longest. I didn't quite understand the point of it, but at the end of the journey, I was just like, okay, that's what this was all for, and it wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't a fan. It's not my cup of tea. People love Paul Thomas Anderson, and some things I like by him, but I think this is the worst of his tendencies. But Harrison loved it.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that. I didn't care for it either, even though it's not my third. I would never watch Inherent Vice again. Mm-hmm. I mean, ever. And yeah. I feel no shame in that, because I'm not a filmmaker person. I'm Paul Anderson. Scream. He made a movie that wasn't any good.
Yeah, no. I guess if you read the book, in Harrison's case, he read the book and like that author,
and I can understand that. I mean, that's what Jennifer and I differ on. 3 Pines.
Yeah.
I loved it, but those books are like the best, one of the best series of books I've ever read, right?
Exactly.
And so for her, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm. And that does it because you get context that other people don't have, and you have an attachment that you don't have. Yeah,
exactly. And just understanding that. My third worst.
Yes.
I think you probably know.
Okay,
is this like the worst one? Or
no.
Is this like...
It's the third.
Okay. The third worst. Okay.
The third worst. So we're working our way up to our worst.
Yeah. Okay.
Our most worst.
I'm going to tell you, you're going to kill me on this one. I know you're going to kill me, but Ghost Story.
Okay.
Oh my God. Sitting through that movie almost killed me. I mean, this is how I rate movies, right? Mm. Did I want to turn off the TV or not? Yeah. And this one, I really wanted to turn off the TV. When she was eating that pie, I seriously thought I was going to throw up. And almost
keep talking about the pie scene. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is our first movie that we watched of the season.
I'm still traumatized by it. Now, granted, I appreciated the fact that it was a movie about a woman dealing with grief. At least part of it was.
Yes.
And if it had focused itself that way, I probably would have enjoyed it more.
It was from a ghost perspective. It was.
I do not care. This movie almost killed me to sit through.
The pie scene was important because of the show The Passing of Time. It was to show a real time grief, and then by the end of it, it's spiraling through a time.
It's spiraling out of control is what it was doing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
People didn't like the pie scene.
That was my third word.
Okay.
Huh?
Okay, that's good. My second worst is The Invitation. That is my second worst. I have heard people rant and rave about how much they love that film, and it was forgettable. It's red box all over. It's confusing, and I don't know what the character we're supposed to get from the character. It's just a nothing film that's just at least be interesting. The thing that saves it, the 100%, what's his name? John Carroll, whatever that character actor's name is that's in it. He is amazing in this movie, and if everyone was up to his part, the part he set with that, it'd be an amazing movie. He's excellent in that, and I think that is a great example of there's lists everywhere, and this should be near the top of the list of a great performance in a bad movie. It is I agree excellent performance.
This movie, I have it marked as a terrible movie.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had looked it up and really thought about it more, I probably would have had it in my top 3 worst movies just for the opening scene.
Yes. Which Ava wouldn't like that opening scene.
Why run over a freaking dog? I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Or coyote, whatever.
Yeah.
It was absolutely not necessary to the movie.
And it didn't make sense.
There was no reason to do it.
Yeah. This movie, I recommended. It was in my top 5 of season 1. A better version of friends getting together and talking, and it's a sci-fi or a kind of thriller premise. Is Coherence. Watch Coherence. It's an amazing film, and it shows how you can just have conversations with people, be a movie, and it be still a sci-fi interesting thriller, and it's just people talking in a room, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I think it's probably still free on Tubi. Go watch Coherence.
It's completely the opposite of The Invitation.
Yes.
In every way, shape, and form.
Yes.
My second, are you ready for it?
Yes, I am ready.
Is Flower.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Flower?
Flower's just right at that. It's the other one that's right above that, yeah.
There's nothing good about this, and I hate that Kathryn Hahn is in this movie.
Kathryn Hahn, see, to me, the redeeming quality is Kathryn Hahn.
That is, but it's not worth watching just for her.
Well, I love Kathryn Hahn, but you're right. It's an awful movie, but I do like their relationship a lot. I thought the mother-daughter relationship was very well written, and the way they interacted with each other, and Kathryn Hahn was really, really great. And I also thought Tim Heidecker, who played the stepfather or whatever, was really, really good. The movie falls off the rails whenever they try to put them romantically together. That and then obviously what. There's a few things about her character that's not great. Awful.
Okay, there is nothing worse, including running over a dog in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right?
I know where you're going.
Forcing a teenage girl to give old men blowjobs. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
Doesn't belong in any movie. Don't need to see it. Don't want to see it. Yeah. Don't want to put it out there in the world.
And she loves doing it too. That's what the premise is. That's the premise.
The director wanted her to love it.
Yes, I know. Yes.
Trust me, she did not.
That's what the script said.
Well, like I said, it's the same trope. It's the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
Time to lose that particular one. I was just looking to see who the director was. Yes, Max. Max even wrote this thing. Uh-huh. So he's having his little girl fantasies on screen. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's second worst.
I agree. That's awful.
Do not watch this movie.
The third act is atrocious. It's yes. There are scenes in it that I think it could be salvageable if you completely jettison that aspect that you just mentioned, jettison that third act, hone in on. I thought they were brewing a friendship between the two, the her new step sibling, like that was actually kind of nice, and I thought his character in general was actually kind of well written and well acted. But boy, is it overshadowed by some really heinous choices, like what you said, and like in the ending in general is really heinous. So
stop doing this to teenage girls in movies, please.
Yeah,
please just stop doing it to them.
At the same time, though, she's trying to sell that, and she's been in other things we've seen, and I really do like in general Zoe Deutsch's performances in films. She's an amazing actress, and she tried her hardest with that.
I just wish this one was not on her resume.
Yeah. Adam Scott's in that movie too, and boy, is he miscast.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. I hope that you put this and not what I think you put, because this is the worst one. This is by far our worst one, and it's High Life. High Life is the worst one, Diane. I was hoping you would say that. But
oh my God, you're right. It's so bad in my scribbling notes. I whipped through it so hard I tore the paper. That's how bad that movie is. Oh yeah.
I know what you're about to say, but we'll keep it. We'll keep it how it is. But High Life is awful. Now, High Life, awful. It is. I don't understand the praise that it gets. It is told in the most incomprehensible way that you have to sit through 30 minutes of a young baby crying.
Right, and again, dogs.
Yes, that's the last part of it.
Totally unnecessary to have dogs.
Yes.
In this movie.
That happens a few times. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yes. And this character is off-putting. It's told, like I said, in the most incomprehensible way. Like, it makes, if it was told, that's not even the hugest problem. But if it was told in chronological order, or at least in a better non-chronological way, it would get the ever so slight pass of being like not having. Why would you start a film with 30 minutes of Robert Pattinson taking care of a baby alone in a space station, in a spaceship, and that's your opening? Like, you start with the most interesting part, and not like it's a torturous experience watching that. It is a absolute torturous experience before you ever get to, and I'm not even joking about it being 30 minutes. It is 30 minutes of this time period of set with just him having to repair a ship and this baby crying, and it's crying for 30 minutes straight. That's your opening of your film. And then you start to get flashbacks, and then it like does a whole flashback arc and then that's so
beyond bizarre.
Beyond bizarre. So you get that they're a prisoner. We talked. If you want to hear at length about us talk about this movie, it was our Halloween episode, by the way. It was when we was in person. It is awfully told, and then that whole thing about her, or the doctor, and then the room.
Yeah, let's not go in. Let's just not even talk about it anymore. It was disgusting.
Yeah. So that's my least favorite film.
I would agree with you. That was probably the worst one we watched.
Mm-hmm. But I know what you're going to say, so go ahead and say it, Diane.
Because I didn't watch the whole thing. It was that bad. I literally turned it off and said, okay, you know what, Cade, I'm not playing.
I told you before, whenever you told me that this could not be on your list, that it would void it. But go ahead and say it, because I don't think you're giving it a fair shake. But go ahead, say it.
Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Yeah, what
right?
do you want to? What do you
want
to?
It?
Yeah, that was what you. What do you want to say?
I lasted 45 minutes into that thing, and that's when I turned it off.
Yep.
And when I can't believe I'm not going to spend another minute of my life watching this shit. Mm-hmm. There's no story.
The ending is what makes it.
Maybe I should have stayed for the end.
It does go places, and it does do things. That is very fascinating. But yeah,
it looked like a bad Scientology, ad.
Which is intentional. It was intentionally made to be like Heaven's Gate Scientology thing.
That's fine. That's why I don't watch those either.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's
Okay, but I do agree with you on the invitation, and High Life actually was the worst movie I said all the way through.
yeah.
It really
I
was
I really
awful.
thought we were going to tie with those two at the end. Because
Yeah, yeah, like I said, having yeah, High Life was definitely the worst movie I said all the way through.
mhm. Yeah. So if you had to update your ranking, what would your updated ranking be for your bottom three?
Definitely would add High Life to that as being, I'd still have Ghost Story and Flower though. I'm sorry.
It's okay for you just add an extra high life on there. Great. Yeah. No, I would agree. Flowers at the very bottom, and so is sorry. So is Trust Me. Those are the other two. That's the if I had to say my top five, those would be the two I'd add.
Yeah. And I would add Inherent Vice.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, not too far off, except for one glaring thing. But we will now go to our top five. We watched, like I said, a lot more good movies than bad movies. My number five. Sorry about this, Diane, because this is one of our things. Number five for me is A Ghost Story. I'm sorry. Yeah.
From a filmmaker's perspective, I could totally see where you would love that movie.
I love the sort of idea. I love just it was heartache. It was about the big thing. Very few times in film do we get to have themes about that weighty, about like death and the afterlife and sort of what it means, like people moving on without you, and the sort of grief that would come from being a ghost and why they haunt, and this theory of like how time passes for ghosts and how they're there for the grieving period while they're there for that in real time, and showing how real time happens in and then it speeds up and it goes through years of humanity, and how this ghost can be stuck at a location through the rise and fall of mankind. It's a lot of stuff, but then it's also an intimate story about love, and I think it works. There are things that, like the one thing, if I could jettison one thing off, it's of course the Native American raid of that scene was like, oh boy, we jettisoned that out. But everything else I really, really did like. I thought it was really a profound film. I mean, I don't know if Rooney Mara was the best person for that character, but that's the only other criticism I had. It's a little too hipster at times, but I really did like it. And what it was saying was actually, I found to be incredibly profound. And I, at the end of the day, like the pie scene for its purposes, but yes, watching someone eat a pie on a floor for 10 minutes straight it's a little hard.
It's as if you were having to listen to a baby cry for 30 minutes.
But it had a point. That did not have a point. It had a thematic point to the pie scene. The pie scene had a thematic point. Whereas
the baby crying had a thematic point too, though.
What was it saying?
Just a different one. The baby's cry?
My baby's cry. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still kind of struggling with my fifth one. I had so many that I really liked.
Yes.
Right? So trying to say one is number five is a little bit hard, because then I have to leave out something that I really did like. And I don't know if I really want to leave anything out. So this is where I'm going to struggle with it. But I'm going to go with, this is so hard, The Lobster. Because I kind of like that movie.
Lobster's not my top five.
I know. See, and it's probably shouldn't be in my top five either, because I got all these other movies that I liked even more. But there's something about that movie that you just can't stop thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Especially in today's world, it's like okay, it was a real statement of what about today and tomorrow and what the future could hold and that kind of thing. So,
yeah.
Yes.
I liked the first half better than the second half whenever they leave the facility. I think the first half is incredibly good, but then it doesn't really have as much to say in the second half. But the first half was really good. And in particular, to me, the standouts, Olivia Colman in that. She's so wonderfully hilarious in that.
Yeah, she is hilarious in it. And the second half to me is more of a statement of society and where society is heading and what society will do to itself.
Yeah.
And we're watching that happen now. So that I think that's probably what I responded to. And I don't know that it's really it's just in my top
Okay.
10. If I could make a top 10, I'd be happier.
Number 4.
Okay.
Number 4 for me. You want to do your number 4 first?
I got to say, Extraordinary.
Okay.
I love that little movie. He made me watch all these horror movies, and I
That was also from our first episode of the season.
I know it's compared the Ghost Story to Extraordinary. This is the difference between Cade and I.
It very much is the difference.
I am more about did I like the movie? I mean, did it entertain me?
Extraordinary is
so
right. I'll tell you where it's at in my list. It's right above Flower.
You're kidding.
That's where I have it.
Oh God.
It's way at the bottom. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know.
That movie made me laugh out loud. I loved it.
Yeah. Will Forte. Yeah, he was really good in that.
I thought it was. I love the Irish actors in it. I love the fact that the Irish can make a horror movie and make it funny.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So 4. Well, I'm glad we're having
really
different things here. Yes.
Okay. Now I have to get serious.
Now, here, you ready for my 4th one?
Yeah.
I'm going to say my 4th one. My 4th one, which I imagine's in yours, so we'll talk about it. I don't know. My 4th, it's actually kind of lower than it was. I don't know. I thought it would have been a little higher. It was one of the ones that we kind of we found and everything and all that. Margin Call. I loved. It was great movie. I mean, this is. I don't have any notes about that one. I think that it was. I mean, I guess they could have developed some things a little bit more, but I loved the act. It was great actors with an ensemble, but I like that it takes place over the one night, and it's a night. I love movies that take place at night. They don't very often, and you get to see this like office building at night, and it's and things that take place over one night like that. That the setting sells me a lot, but then on top of that. The fact that they keep bringing higher level, their bosses keeps getting run up the ladder, and each of them have to come into the building for this sort of thing, and then it brings in some other character actor that comes in and gets to do that, and they each are some sort of different I want to say stereotype, but like caricature. I won't even say caricature. Some right. Like a fixture of office politics of some sort, and they're each in like. So you have, Paul Bettany to Kevin Spacey to then he goes to his boss and it's Michael C. Hall, which is like, it was getting older, but then it's like he's a younger guy that's like ahead of him and there's reasons for that. And then you have Demi Moore and I mean, it keeps going up to Jeremy Irons, and Jeremy Irons is the standout. Boy, is he amazing in this film.
Yes. I have that one as my number 2.
Mm-hmm. I love the film a lot, and we can talk about it more when it's yours. But we talked about it quite a bit in our show, and I loved that. So do I do my number 3? How are we doing this? Do I do my number 3 and then you, or do we switch? Go ahead.
My number 3.
Go ahead, do yours. So what are you on 3 on yours?
Yeah.
No.
Number 3.
Yes, 3. Yes, you're on 3. Go ahead, 3. Yeah.
The Kids Are All Right.
Kids Are All Right. Okay.
Love The Kids Are All Right.
It's up there on my list.
What I did was I put, like I said, I broke this into categories, and in relationship movies, The Kids Are All Right was number 1 for me. Maggie's Plan was number 2, and The Lobster was number 3. But then when I put them all together, just how freaking crazy the Lobster is, and its concept, and it's what it's trying to say about society and our cultures and all that stuff. I had to pump it up. But in the relationship world, in just those movies, which included Patterson, by the way, which I did love Patterson.
I thought you really liked. I assumed Patterson was going to be high on yours.
Yeah,
I have Patterson higher than Kids Are All Right, which is kind of shocking in a lot of respects because
the fact that the kids didn't accept the dad as their for the rest
We're
of
not
their
going to relitigate that whole conversation.
That was it. I know that's what you guys didn't like it.
it was the harsh turn or whatever. We're not relitigating that. If you want to hear our conversation about that, go watch that with Ava.
So what was your number 3?
Well, what did you like about The Kids Are All Right?
I liked the acting in it first and foremost was really, really good.
Yes.
And it treated the kids in the movie as if they were as important as the adults.
Mm-hmm.
And in so many relationship kind of movies, the kids are secondary. We saw that kind of with Maggie's Plan. They didn't the kids didn't get the treatment that they really probably should have gotten. But in The Kids Are All Right, they did. They were central to the plot, and they were given the same gravitas as the adults in the movie. That, and I think the subject. I think the subject is telling of our times. I'm big into, what are our times trying to tell us?
Yeah.
That's and true. Mark Ruffalo. I'm sorry, but I have a huge crush on him.
Yes, he was really fun in that too. I mean, yeah, and I liked. I mean, Julianne Moore. I love Julianne Moore.
Oh yeah,
and she's great. And Annette Bening, I think really was the standout of the performance wise. She was really, really, really good.
She really was.
That that dinner scene where she figures out all that, and that's yeah.
Just such a great scene. Mm-hmm. And Ava had listed her number 3 was The Vast of Night. And I struggled with that because it's on my number 1 list for sci-fi. I liked it even better than, the other sci-fis that we had in.
Yeah.
It was The Vast of Night. I did like that movie a lot. And it was hard not to have it in my top 5.
Well, my number 3... I don't know. I'm trying to guess what yours is over here because I don't want to ruin what your order is of different things. I don't know, but it's my number 3. My number 3, Night Moves. I loved Night Moves.
Yeah, about the environmentalist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
I absolutely loved that movie more than I anticipated I was going to. It was like one of those ones that's like, oh, that's. I don't know. It's just going to be some sort of drama or whatever things, maybe it's going to be too preachy because it's about these environmentalists and everything. But oh my goodness, is Night Moves just amazing? It's just the vibe of it, but also just the characters. Like in sort of like it's about like we talk about it at length in our conversation on that. But it's just I highly recommend it. The Jesse Eisenberg's best performance, I think. I think it's not preachy because it kind of shows the failure of even their ideology, or not necessarily ideology, about their perspective, like of how they go about their way what they go about. And I thought that was very nuanced and very interesting, and so it wasn't like it, but it doesn't say they were wrong or whatever. That's just the premise of the movie. What it's looking at is these characters in this very unique perspective and how they deal with the ramifications of what they did, which was attack or what, I don't know what you want to call it. I highly recommend watching it. It's very tense. It's very soft. At the same time, it's low key. I don't know. I love the vibe of the way people talked and everything. I want to see more of this director's work, and we might have to add some of her work here and there of that because I think that she did such an excellent job of telling just these. They're working class people, but they're also kind of left leaning or whatever. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating characters and told in a very interesting lo-fi, interesting way. And I was blown away by how much I just really, really love this movie. This is what you can do with just characters.
Good.
Yeah. So your number 2 was, we already said, right?
Margin Call. Yes.
Margin Call. What did you like about Margin Call, Diane?
First off, we probably talked about this during the podcast.
Go ahead, Diane.
I worked for the financial services industry when this happened. It was a rough year. That whole year was tough. And just knowing everything that occurred leading up to that, whenever Lehman went through this, when that happened to them, which was a 24-hour period, but it had over a year leading up to it. where other dominoes were falling, and understanding that, and then getting to see it played like almost real time, really, for the Lehman Brothers guys. But
it was fictionalized, but yes, it was based on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the reality was, in that 24 hours, what happened there was true. It's just that the setup took a lot longer.
Yes. Yeah.
than 24 hours that put them into the situation, but how quickly it was able to fall apart. And like you said, they bring in all these different characters, and
it's a tragedy. It's almost like
a tragedy,
and it deals with that in such a unique way. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And then understanding the people who are in the positions. I mean, I understand those positions, those jobs that these people have, and what their role is within the company, and at what point Jeremy Irons' character goes to get to what he wants to hear, and what he will do to do that. And having seen that actually happen in my real work experience, that, and then the way he dealt with it when it was done, same thing. The guy that he portrayed in that is the CEO of a Fortune 500 company right now. He shouldn't be, but he is.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. So anyway, so that's what I think I loved about it the most.
And that performance, and then knowing how, so they're all shifting to try to save their own self, and trying to push, trying to play this game, and whenever, the ramifications of this is more widespread than their own personal, but all they see is how their own thing. And then it's the idea that at these different levels, all of them are still living within their means. They have to have the salary that they have, because they have all of they're just living right at the edge, all the way up the line. They all feel like they have to have that sort of, and just the nuances of that was so fascinating. And all of them have different perspectives. Stanley Tucci's a standout. I think about that. His scenes are really great. But Jeremy Irons at that executive dining thing. Oh my God, that scene is it's the whole themes of the movie. It's a masterclass is really what it is, of acting, and just how to sum up your themes of a person and of a character's perspective. I mean, wow. And he sells that. Jeremy Irons is one of our great actors.
He really is. So that one, that one's the one that I had at number 2.
Yes. Number 2 for me, Diane, is Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Okay, Cade.
I want to be clear here. I'm alone here. Harrison hated the movie, who was on here with me.
Oh, I know he did. Yeah. He and I talked. Yeah. I listened.
That movie is absolutely, it's something to go through. It's it's a lot. It could have a lot taken out of it. I understand that. It is over long. It is over, the pacing is not great in that first hour. But where it goes is so the vibe of that opening where you're talking about with the Scientology Heaven's Gate thing. I was 100,000,000% on board with this film at that moment, of this idea of using this iconography of that time period, and the VHS, all this sort of stuff, and this analog grain. The fact that it's set in a former cult leader's laboratory, that's this mid-century laboratory from the 60s, but now we're in the 80s, and it's all decrepit and people left, and you essentially only have his mentee who's carrying on his former leader's projects, and it's a completely empty facility. And I absolutely love this idea of because it's looking at Americana and sort of the destruction of Americana, and the crumbling of idea of what the ideals of America was, and set in the vibe of it, of the synth. I loved it. It was shot on film. It was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful film. I loved it. And by the end, when it gets to its sci-fi elements, and they're borrowing from The Man Who Fell from Earth, and they're doing all this different things, it is in where it kind of goes about from that perspective. I love this film. I absolutely love this film. And truthfully speaking, this is the type of film that I wanted from this podcast of finding these diamonds in the rough that are these weird gems that I absolutely love. And this is one of those. This is the type of movie that I absolutely love. It reminds me of some of the movies that are up there for me, and this is one of them. I love this film. I do. It could have been a half hour shorter.
Oh, dear. You may need counseling.
It's about, I don't know, whatever. I found it to be incredibly interesting sort of vibe. It was a vibe film. It's one of those vibe films, and I did dig the vibe, and I dug this idea of we're kind of looking at these mid-century, like these hopeful, these ideas of America and the sort of crumbling aspect of it it reminds me of like Tomorrowland and that sort of theme of that. Of course, that's a Disney film and it's completely different, but like there's specific things that's like, that's a theme that particularly always really gets me, that we don't see in film enough, is this idea that the sort of failure of the American idea, and that is told so visually, fascinatingly in this film.
Okay.
Go ahead, Diane. What's your number one?
Oh, you want me to go first? This is
Sure.
going to be The Post. I'm sorry. It's Meryl. It's everything
Diane.
about that movie. I love that movie. I love The Post. I love the times. This was an impressionable time for me. I was like your generation is now when all this happened. And so it was just, I loved it. Loved it. But I love conspiracy movies. So. And I like the fact that they really depicted what it was like for her, mm-hmm. And at the time, women were not allowed to be in these kind of roles.
Yes.
Women were not allowed to have a voice. Women were not allowed to make decisions like that. They so showed how dismissive the world was toward women 50 years ago, 60 years, 50 years ago. And that's coming back. That's going to be here in another 10 years unless we do something. But I just loved how he depicted that, and he showed that, and then he showed her standing up for it, and I liked it a lot.
I wish that Tom Hanks's character had as much of an arc.
Wasn't about Tom Hanks.
He was the co-lead of the story. I don't know. They spent just as much time with him as they did Meryl.
But
they did.
Tom. It wasn't about Tom.
Well, you didn't view it through that lens, but they certainly spent enough time on that they should have had an arc for him, being that it was the same amount. And we're not going to relitigate this whole thing, but I'm just going to say she, did a little bit of she phoned it in a bit.
I think until you've actually had to portray a woman that has been born, bred, and raised to be one thing and one thing only, mm-hmm. which is brainless. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. No, you're right. She did. Yes. She did a good job.
It was not phoning it in for her because she wasn't raised that way.
Oh, you're right.
Think about it. She had to make herself do that. And so, yeah. I'm sorry. I know I should take my feminist hat off. It was like, what did Ava say? She didn't like it because she wasn't a strong woman. Well,
that was the point of that. Yeah.
Wildlife.
Yes.
The drama.
So Ava said,
I remember this one now.
The Vast of Nights, her 3.
Yeah.
2 is The Kids Are All Right. This is Ava for our audio listeners, or who's been on the show and also our most avid live stream watcher. Mm-hmm. And then number 1 was Wildlife. And Wildlife is number 6 on my list. I love Wildlife.
It was in my top 10 for sure.
And it was in my top 5 for a long time until this last
plan.
one. Until Maggie's plan.
I knew you would love Maggie's plan.
That is my number one film. Until then, I was just like, I am absolutely blown away by this movie. I don't know, you guys were a little lukewarm on it, but I love this film. Like, why aren't more films told this way? And why don't they explore their characters and put them in interest? Like, it's kind of, it's in some ways, I said it before, this is kind of how I like writing things and like putting characters in. It's almost sitcom-y, I think you would say, of how they kind of, the idea that you take these characters and put them in different sort of situations and different pairings of characters to make some comedy arise. But what they don't go that route where it's like, slapstick or situation, like it's still very grounded in a grounded movie, but it's taking that element of what is well done in sitcoms and putting it in a feature film format, which is this idea that we're going to explore this ensemble of characters, constantly change the situation of the film, have it be altered in different ways, and then pair them off in such interesting, unique ways that showcases how unique each one of these characters are and how unique the situation that they are now in is. It is so expertly told, and from a screenwriting perspective and how it shifts and jumps time and does different things, I absolutely love this film. Highly recommend it. If all romantic comedies and things were told this way, I would watch them all, because this is great of how each relationship was unique, and each character was unique, and the performances were stellar. Greta Gerwig, I know that you guys weren't probably too sold on that. That performance to me is an excellent performance. Ethan Hawke is amazing in this, and Julianne Moore is phenomenal. I loved this movie and cannot recommend it enough. It's one that I'd say rent it for whatever it is, buy it, which I had to, but I would do it again.
Yeah, well, now that you've compared it to a sitcom, yeah, I could see it. It was like a sitcom, but it was all the whole season in one movie. The scenes were broken up, kind of like a sitcom, and now that you've made that translation, I get that now. Yeah,
well, it's sort of
the movie.
That's the theory I see with, like, I mean, because I think in some respects Ribbon's that way. In a lot of my films, I hesitate putting that out in the world, because when you sort of see that, you sort of see kind of the bones of the film, and it's like it's taking what is an element of that and making it a vehicle for exploring these characters in interesting ways and making them look multifaceted by just putting them in sort of interesting situations. I think it makes you feel for these characters a lot more, because you get to see them in different situations, and it makes them seem more human than a movie in which they're on a single track and you only see them from the light shining on one direction. This way, the camera moves, you see them from all different angles, and putting them in different situations makes them look like a more fully formed character, and you have more fun with it. It's just a fun way of viewing these characters, and because we don't get to see pairings like that, and the fact that it's her and Ethan Hawke, and then Ethan Hawke, and then Julianne Moore, and then Julianne Moore and Greta Gerwig's character, like it makes it a very fascinating watch. So that's why it's my number one. It's brilliant filmmaking. Yeah. Well, so we talked about a lot of great this is
a good list.
It's a good
of
list.
Movies.
Yes.
Our first season, I think this list was better than the first season list that we did. And part of that, I think, is just the prep work you did up front before this season started, or phase 2 of this season, however you want to say it.
Yeah. I agree. I think that there was a lot of prep work that had to be done to pair these and to do different things. And I think even like our guests complimented the films that we were doing, and it made it like it had a good like switching back and forth. And then sometimes we'd have like two kind of darker things, but then we'd come back and do some lighter ones, and and it had a really good balance where it wasn't like half of it was just mixed with some horror film, or like it was then it like, or people were given movies that they really weren't compatible with or whatever. I thought this was this really worked a lot better, and I thought that it was that. I do think though I did really like from the first season. It's still maybe one of I don't know. I'd have to rank them all. I'm comparing them back then, but our favorite was oh God, what was it called? The the Hugh Jackman, the Bad Education.
Bad Education, yeah.
That's still just an amazing film, and A Diamond in the
It
Rough.
really is. It really is.
That
It's
I
amazing to me more people have not seen that film.
Mm-hmm. And if it's anything, it's telling people to go and watch that film because there's a few of them that's like I have never heard anyone talk about that, and there's like I love Night Moves. That was from this one. I've never heard anyone talk about Night Moves. There's a few of these really good diamonds in the rough, as we say, they were on some list somewhere and someone saw them, and I'm glad they had it on their list because we were able to talk about them here too, and hopefully spread that with people because I have never heard a lot of people talk about some of the movies that we talk about that are. I've seen Margin Call sometimes, but I don't think it's within the context of like here's the best movies of the 2010s, and it should be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. Same thing with Wildlife. I think that's another one that how did this get overlooked? This is such a good movie, and compared to so many other indie films that are out there that are put over the top, like August Osage County,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
Well, similarly, like so, August Osage County, a great cast, and it's a small thing, and it got pushed out and everything. Maggie's Plan. Great cast, a huge cast of characters, and yet nothing. I have never heard anyone ever say anything about Maggie's Plan, and it's my top one. It's one of my favorite movies I've ever seen, and
I can't imagine how it must feel for these directors and producers of these movies that don't get that recognition, and seeing a movie like August Osage County.
Yeah. No, you're right. It must be a studio. It must be distribution is really what it's got to come down to. Is that somebody? It's not they didn't get picked up for whatever reason from a huge distributor, and then if they did, they didn't put as much money behind it as say other things. Because I 100% agree that like. Because Maggie's Plan's even just now is still hard to find. We had to rent it.
Exactly.
And that should be picked up by Netflix. Should buy the rights to that or whatever, put it on their catalog or sell it, whatever. I mean, it should be out more.
See it under Netflix or under HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
Good home for that one.
And sometimes these things do get a second wind whenever they do get picked up by something like that. I remember one of the movies that I really liked of the 2010s was The Gift. Jason Bateman. I don't know if you ever saw that thriller with him, and it was released in theaters, and no one saw it in theaters. I saw it in theaters. I kept singing the praises. I'm like, as soon as this goes out on streaming, it's going to be a huge hit, and everyone's going to talk about it. It took years for it to come out onto streaming, but when it came on Netflix, it was like number one, and everyone started talking about it. And it's a huge people know it now, and it's like it was always going to do that because it's an amazing film, but it just takes. Sometimes, it just doesn't hit at the right time for whatever reason. If other things are out, other conversations are being had, but it's a good enough product or a good enough piece of art, maybe that if people actually do see it, then they'll like it. But it just takes sometimes it being said enough, timing, and timing.
Timing is everything.
Yeah,
timing is everything. Okay, well, so. Anything else, Cade?
I don't think so. I think so. I very different lists from us. Some of you, two of your bottom ones are in my top. There's a few different ones. Well, a lot of yours aren't in my either one, and so it's. I think it does show the wide range of topics we talk here on the show.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And I hope next season. That we have several that Ava can join us on because I first off, Ava, I love the movies Ava loves. In other words, there's no horror, there's not a lot of blood. I kind of like those the best. Mm-hmm. Those are my favorites. So yeah. And I love talking about movies with Ava.
Yes, I agree. I think Ava's one of our best guests that we have on here, and I think all of our guests this season I would like to have on again, and I think having them on will be really fun, and we'll try to get them all planned out ahead of schedule and everything. And like I said, we are returning in February. Whenever this is released later, you'll have a date. So February, whatever. It's coming on the screen now.
We just know it's going to happen in February. So.
Yes. Sometime in February. A Sunday in February, probably.
More than likely.
Yeah. So we'll see you. We'll see you then. I like I said, great time. We've done 30. Here's the 30 more, I guess. Next season will be 15, but we'll do 15 seasons. Or 15 episode seasons. There we go.
I like it. I like 15 episode seasons. Yes.
Yes. I think it's a good range. It allows us to have some breaks in between and everything. It's a good round number. Every 5, it's just us.
Yeah, I like that too. It takes me back to the days when we first met, Cade.
Yes.
When we didn't have anything else to do but, scan pictures, build metadata, and talk about movies.
Exactly. And I'm glad that we do this together, and we get to see a lot of films and talk about them.
I'm glad to see you have your Bigfoot Christmas tree up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very important. I probably should have took that down for now because it's been released after Christmas. We probably should have. Oh well. They'll know when we made this or whatever. Who knows? Or I don't know. We don't know when this is releasing. Like I said, subscribe, and click the notification bell. And then if you're listening to this as a podcast, subscribe and rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it. I really enjoy doing this, and I assume you do too, Diane.
I do. Well, no, I didn't. I didn't enjoy doing it. My whole family thinks I'm crazy.
Oh, I think you're great.
Do a podcast. I have friends that are like, "What the heck are you doing a podcast for?" But here's what, like Ava says, it's gobs of fun.
It's gobs of fun. Yeah,
we should have
called our podcast "Gobs of Fun."
It is gobs of fun to do it, and at first I was like, I just don't know if I can do this 2 movies a week kind of thing, and now I've kind of built it into a schedule, and most of the time I look forward to them. Not always, but I got to see a Muppet movie. Who knew?
Yeah, exactly. We'll see you next season in February for the 3rd season of Double Feature Movie Club.
February 2023.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.